Okay, this is just a challenge to demonstrate that we have better demonstrations of reality, thought, expressions of logic than what we are often presented. For example, in closed or open theism, it's very challenging for philosophers or complex thinkers, and it leaves people who are believers of the Bible, the living God. What do we do? Well, we're left to just pick if we assume that whatever these philosophers are saying or whatever these religious leaders are saying to support their constructs. However, we might have a solution, and we do. Math, for example, math is a root word for disciple in the Bible, the Koine Greek. And if you remember in our math class, the concept of something being able to be presented in an infinite number of ways, infinite number of different ways, and yet the outcome's the same, that's not really anything large in very low level mathematics. So 2 plus 2 is 4, which, okay, that's good. We can demonstrate that. Well, we can also, in an infinite number of ways, rewrite that. So here, in less than 2 minutes, the problem of closed and open theism is solved, because the concept is nothing in a branch of theology called mathematics, nor is it really a difficulty in the branch of science of theology called physics, and it's nothing in a branch of theology called chemistry. So in these fields of science, which are branches of theology, we don't find these endless flummoxes. So that if you're in a church and you attend church this Sunday, for example, here at Landmark Missionary Baptist Church in Jacksonville, and you're reading in your Bible and you notice several times, almost 52 times, matter of fact, you see living God, living in true God, and all these assertions, and you see all this living and a record of all these living and historical realities, and you know you're alive, you know God's alive, you're a living soul, He's a living God. And then you hear people come in with these cookie cutter constructs, and so much has to remain outside their construct when they cookie cut that. But we don't need to be shaken or tossed to and fro. The Bible isn't deceiving us. We're not being misled. God is alive, and that holds implication. And that's why it's nothing for everything to be different and nothing to be the same twice, and yet the outcome be assured. So when people say, well, you can't change the future, well, God changes it every day, and yet He has the same outcome. So this really doesn't bode well for people who need what we'd say the letter of law or the letter of a construct. I call it lithograph stone writing, where they need to chisel in lines. It does provoke and incite the flesh to fight and to banter, which seems to be the energy for an economy, a catalyst for an economy. But we're not here to economize. We're here to evangelize. We're not ecumenical. We're evangelical. We're here to call men to come out to serve the living God, trust the living God, and to give our lives and the precious time we're afforded so graciously by God to serving Him and preaching His gospel. So if it seems difficult to you, open or closed theism, and you read all these abstract, complex arguments, really you can go back to your mathematics level, not beyond third grade, and remember that you can rewrite something in an infinite number of ways. It can be expressed differently. So in thought, it's not a problem. And God being alive, you can demonstrate that what that implies in the scriptures is actually true. God did actually speak, and people heard the voice of the living God as early as Deuteronomy. And we have a record of Him stepping into space and time in the incarnation. We have Him conversing with people, which today that seems to be the big deal, and yet when you read the contextualized narratives, it's what was being discussed. For example, when the sun stood still, we're all marveling that how would that happen physically? Now, that's nothing we should consider, since the text shows what God was impressed with and had the writer record was that God had listened to the voice of a man. And yet we're trying to understand how could he stop and suspend the sun and all of this. Well, if we take the first verse of the Bible where he spoke instantly, a perfect earth and space, we have matter and space instantly spoken. It's certainly nothing about which we should be alarmed. But if you read the Bible, as Christians do, and you see what the context are speaking towards and focusing on, it's not what our attention has been diverted to today. So if you think the solution presented today is really invalid, go ahead. You will be very hard-pressed to find a better way to demonstrate, but by faith of what the Bible actually teaches, because a normal reading of the Bible does not find us with such, if we will, products of reduction, religion, if you will, where it's so reduced, it's something so undeveloped as to just say open or closed theism. So let people banter and argue, but why don't we just solve it? And I do that as a pastor for the congregation of living souls who serve under the headship of the living Christ. So that wasn't too hard. So in less than 2 minutes, open and closed theism was readily solved by demonstrating easily how the thinking of living theism and living soul, living God and living soul, and how that is so easily demonstrated that perhaps if we just went back to the higher level of thought that we were taught as early as 3rd grade, we might not now be abandoned and asked to participate in very crude, arbitrary, abstract conversations that really do nothing but spoil and subvert the hearers. So you have a blessed day.